Hi guys, my name is Sam and this is Nick. We are from REBORN and we are joined today with Delanie Fischer. She is a comedian and CEO and has her own podcast, Self-Helpless. Thank you for joining us today and speaking with REBORN. We would love to have you. And we're just doing a quick first question, just like a mental check-in. So how are you doing today?
Oh, what a good question. Today I'm feeling all right, but I think it's a day by day thing at this point. Some days I wake up feeling very positive and hopeful, and some days I wake up feeling like shit. So I don't know if I can swear on this. But I think everybody's kind of in that right now. But today I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me, and definitely believe a lot in what you're doing with the way that you're helping people. So yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, of course. And on your website, DelanieFischer.com, you have a couple blog posts. In one of your posts, you talk about 12 ways to reduce anxiety during quarantine. What are a few of those things that really stick out to you that maybe you started using them in March that you're still using now? It's July, we're almost in August, and we're still we're a little better, but we're still in the same situation. So what are a few things that have really been guiding you through these past 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, let me be totally honest with telling you what has actually stuck, because right when quarantine hit, I was like, okay, I'm going to up my self-care. It's going to be crazy, right? So the things that I'm actually doing almost daily are I go for very long walks. I go for a really long walk around my neighborhood. I think that really saves me. I take a bath almost every night because I feel like it completely relaxes my body. So that's something I have definitely stuck with. And deep breaths, a lot of deep breaths throughout the day. So those are like the 3 things that I do very, very consistently. I do the rest of them, like, meditate and some of the other things I have on that list. But those are the things that I'm really finding that I naturally gravitate to, and I don't really have to think about anymore.
So through these like amazing activities that you've been doing, I personally, and you're right though, it's like you try one thing on like a random Monday, like, oh, I'm going to try meditating. And then by Wednesday, it's like you never meditate again. But through these things, meditating, walking, what have you kind of learned about yourself that maybe you didn't know before quarantine when you had so many things going on, but now you kind of have that second to step back, give some me time, whether it's walking, whether it's meditating, whether it's yoga, whatever it may be. What are a few things that you've kind of learned about yourself?
You know what has really this whole period of time has really sealed the deal for me is that I am definitely an introvert. I like my alone time. I like my space. And that makes sense because I was a stand-up comedian for 6.5 years, but there was a big internal struggle and battle going on because I felt like it was very opposite to kind of how I wanted to spend my time in a lot of ways. And so for me, this period of time is basically reminded myself like, I like being on my own. Like, I'm not really struggling as much as my extroverted friends with this period of time. To be honest, I kind of like the excuse to not have to like go anywhere, So I think I've just been like learning to be okay with that, and that I don't have to feel guilty for not doing more things or going more places or, talking to more people. I think that's going to kind of stick with me going forward. Like, it's okay if I don't want to, go to that friend's barbecue. Maybe I'll see that friend in a different way over like a 1-to-1 lunch situation at some point. So I think that's what it's really taught me. Like, I'm kind of a loner.
that whole excuse.
Why do I feel exactly the same?
The excuse of, I want to socially distance is come in hand a few times for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially now that things are starting to open. But and you guys in your podcast with Kelsey and Taylor, you review a book that I love, The Subtle Art of Not Giving. You can fill in the blank if you want.
Yes.
You review kind of, and you talk about, the new like counterintuitive approaches to mental health that, this book is a New York Times best-selling book. So it's a new approach that people are taking. Why is it so important for you to incorporate your life as a comedian into, your discussions about things like mental health and these very kind of personal and hard things to talk about for a lot of people? Why is that important to, add some comedy to it?
Yeah, you know what, I think us being very open on the show is really for the sake of, I mean, it helps us too. It helps us talk about our stuff. But I know as a listener of podcasts, I always appreciate when people are honest and open and they reveal some information about themselves. For me, it helps the information actually sink in a more real way versus when somebody's kind of giving a general book review or talking more generally about a mental health topic, kind of more of, from like a medical stance or something. I like hearing people say, this is what happened to me, this is how I handled it, this is what's worked, this is what didn't work. And so I think we kind of know that the more that we reveal, the more that we're probably helping people, even though talking about ourselves in such an intimate way can be very uncomfortable. And I think as far as, the way that myself, Taylor, and Kelsey kind of process our own trauma and stuff like that is through laughter, is through making jokes. And so for us, it's like, that's how we kind of heal. And so I think it's just kind of a natural part of us, talking with each other, and the fact that we've all done, comedy, professionally and stuff like that. But I think it comes from a lot of pain. And basically, what do you do with that pain? Well, you can either drop on the floor and cry about it, or you can laugh about it, or you can do a mixture of both, which is what we like to do. so I think it's kind of a natural response, to the topics and stuff that we discuss.
Where did that passion for, wanting to help people with mental health and with people with their day-to-day struggles? Because I mean, the three of you are obviously very relatable in how you talk about it, and the way you're talking about a more like normal version of it rather than just kind of reading from a book. Why is it so important for you to help others?
That's a good question. We started the podcast because we all realized that we were very interested in self-improvement and personal development. Like, we had all been reading self-help books since like we were young teens. And we're like, wait a minute, we should really talk about this and do a show, do a podcast about it. And so we really started it just kind of as like this fun thing, because we all shared this interest. And then what happened is we kind of went into it thinking this is going to be probably more comedy related with a little bit of self-help or self-improvement. But then our audience, our listenership grew a lot, and they started basically saying, hey, will you talk about X, Y, and Z? Will you tackle this difficult topic? Will you do this? And so our show kind of became a lot more, basically a lot more serious than we thought it would be, covering a lot more, a lot of, mental health, disorders and things like that we didn't know if we would actually ever get into. And so we kind of let the audience and let our listeners tell us what they needed. So we'd love to take credit for all of it, but they've really been a very active, they've been active participants in our content. And it's very possible we would have kept the show a bit more surfacey without their feedback. So they're the ones kind of saying, can you talk about like more trauma, more this, more that? And we said, yeah, like if this is what people need, let's do it. So it was very organic, the way that it evolved.
And I feel like that's what so many people like about podcasts, is kind of having that community of it, because it is people talking to you. It's people talking in your headphones or however you listen to a podcast. But that's exactly what it is. So it's good. And I think that's why you guys have been so successful and so many people find help in the three of you talking, is because it really is like friends talking to you about something that everyone's been dealing with.
I also think that the aspect of comedy that you bring into it also makes, I know, mental health and like depression and anxiety kind of is like very serious topic that I feel like a lot of people interpret it as like almost gloomy and sad. Kind of like it's like I feel like maybe people kind of have it as like a negative connotation, but I think in the sense of it's a very real thing that a lot of people struggle with. And I think in the sense of talking at it with like a little comedic twist, and like you bring in your guys's, like you laugh and you joke, I think it makes it more available to talk about. Like it makes it comfortable. That's what
absolutely. Yeah, we want this stuff to be very attainable and relatable. So people, for me, like I feel like I learn better when the person who is talking or presenting has some humor. For me, that like the information just kind of sticks, or I remember it better, or I retain it well, so I think that element can make it almost easier for people to kind of learn as well. At least people that might learn the way I do.
No, exactly. I feel like I'm the same way. I feel like when there's something that it's like, it's not like I know I'm still in college and I have lecture halls, and I know when I'm sitting there for a long period of time, it kind of gets very monotone. I'm just like, I don't retain information as much, but I feel like when it's entertaining and it's like, has some kind of like comedy or something, I do, you're right, I obtain that information more and I remember it and I stick because it like interesting to listen to and the person was funny or entertaining or like whatever, and I then get their message that they were trying to get across too.
Yeah, it kind of keeps your attention better. Like if you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
40 minutes of material that's really important that you want people to ingest, you can either be very monotone about it and very kind of like, or you can be a bit engaging. So they kind of stick with you and they get to those, those parts that they might need to hear. So yeah, no, that's kind of, I think, the podcasts that we have are also kind of, the things that we're drawn to ourselves.
So staying on the topic of self-help lists, and in one of your recent episodes, you spoke about the power of saying yes. How can we learn to be more open-minded in our day-to-day lives, especially now when there really is a level of uncertainty and you can't predict everything like you used to?
Yeah, I think, saying yes, that it can be tricky because saying yes to what you truly want also means saying no to something else or to other people or whatever it might be. So for me, when I think of like saying yes or staying open is almost like staying open to like my true wants and needs, even if they are not the norm, or they might go against the grain. And so I think this period of time is hopefully allowing people to really sit with themselves and figure out what's important to them, even if it might differ from the people that might be in their immediate circle or something like that. So I think, being open to a different kind of future that maybe you didn't think about before. A lot of people are pivoting their careers and stuff like that right now, or they're trying new things. They're working on projects they had been putting off for years, right? So I think just kind of being honest with yourself and trying to have as little external influence as possible when you're making your decisions, being very intentional about it. That's to me what I feel like saying yes for myself is like kind of sticking to what I know that I want and need, even if, it might be a bit uncomfortable.
On the theme of kind of, throwing your fishing net out there and trying new things, through your work as a creative consultant, why is it so important to, help people that maybe, have great ideas, but are still a little, whether it's anxious or still a little unsure about how they're going to put those ideas out there? Why is it, one, so rewarding to see these people like you reach success in all these different avenues? And also, why is it important to, play a role in these people's lives?
Oh, good question. Honestly, I like starting my own business and kind of taking that leap and stuff. It completely changed my life. I know it sounds cheesy, but I can honestly say I'm 90% happier doing what I do now than what I did at like my corporate job or doing stand-up comedy and all that stuff. And so if if I got that kind of result for myself and it completely changed my life, I would love others to experience that too. And when I see them experience it, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't really describe it. And that I think creates a snowball effect. So now they get that transformation, they're going to go out and help other people and so on and so forth. And to be honest, I love doing it. I've always kind of done this. I never thought this could be really a career path, honestly, but I was always the person that wanted to get together with people and talk about their creative projects and give them advice and give them feedback. I always had people reaching out to me, like asking, hey, can I pick your brain about this? Will you meet me for coffee so I can talk about this? And I always said yes, because I genuinely loved it. So it kind of aligns with everything. Like I wanted to help people in a very direct way versus some of the other work I've done in the past has been kind of indirect.
What advice do you, because you've been there in the kind of the spot where you have this great idea, you want to do something, but you still kind of have that initial pullback. Should I do this? Especially now with so many people coming up with different ideas and really finding themselves through quarantine and
Yeah.
doing, too much stuff. What
Yeah.
advice do you give to people that are really struggling with whether if it's like voices in their head telling them like, oh, you shouldn't do this or you're not good enough, or just internal doubt, internal stress? What advice do you have for that?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I do a lot of exercises with my clients because starting a business or scaling a business or starting a podcast, whatever it might be, so much self-doubt is intertwined with those types of things.
You're
So
putting yourself out there for the world to see.
yes. So it's really like, if you don't get your mindset in a good place, you're not going to follow through and make this thing happen. They very much go hand in hand. So when it comes to self-doubt, I always tell people, look back into your past, at a time where you were new at something. What happened? Yeah, maybe it was a little uncomfortable, but what happened? Like, how did you progress, right? So your first day of work, or the first time you, I don't know, threw a basketball, whatever it might be, what did you do? Did you get a little bit better every day? All that stuff. So bringing it back to the present moment, it's okay to be new at this. It's going to take some time, but it's nothing bad's going to happen to you by trying this out. So we kind of do that. I also tell them to write out the people they are concerned about. So if you are concerned about what people might think, sometimes when it's floating around in your head, you think it's this like big, massive kind of vague number. But when my clients actually write out who they're concerned about, it's like 3 to 5 people. I'm like, okay, are you going to let 3 to 5 people stand in your way of pursuing this thing that you really want to try? And let's take a look at who those 3 to 5 people are. Would you in places with them? Are they doing what you want to do? And are happy, doing that? Did they have the courage to kind of go for what they wanted to, right? We kind of go through all that. And of course, if those people are very close to them, whether it's a parent or a spouse or whatever, we talk about how to best kind of approach them about it, whether it's having a conversation about, their concerns, or, I tell people, look, you can like mute people on social media, or you can like hide your post from them if you really need to for a little while. So that's another one that I think helps a lot of people, is really writing out, making it a tangible number. And yeah, there's so many different ones, but those are a couple, that might help people right now.
Yeah, it's never really been explored, but I think it's so interesting to find like the connection between comedy and mental health, because to be a comedian, you're putting yourself out there for judgment. I'm sure like you're constantly thinking, oh, are people going to laugh at this joke? Are people going to boo me? And like, so kind of going off the same thing is, when were you able to kind of get out of your head? Because I'm assuming if you're in your head as a comedian, that's just like self-sabotage 101. So kind of why was it so important, and when did you have that kind of like aha moment, like I'm just going to go out there and just like I'm presenting myself, and whatever the world thinks, whatever they take, but I'm comfortable and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kill it?
Yeah, good question. And to be honest, the answer might not be great. I never got out of it. I never got out of my head. So for me, it was just managing it. I learned how to manage it better. So I would be lying if I said I got super comfortable, or, I didn't care what people thought anymore. I absolutely did. I was nervous before every time getting on stage. And I think you just kind of build up more evidence that you can do it and that you can work through it. And even if it doesn't go super well, that you're going to recover and it'll be okay. So I think by building up the experience and the evidence is what kind of helps you. And then learning, everybody has their own tools to kind of manage whatever they're afraid of, whether it's stage fright or jokes not going well or whatever it might be. So I got more comfortable in the sense that I got more comfortable with being uncomfortable, honestly. It's kind of how that went. But I never reached kind of an aha moment, like, yes, I've made it, I'm not afraid of anything. So I think it's important for people to know that.
I feel like that's very relatable to a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people, you're right, as you said, don't fully get comfortable. They just get comfortable with the feeling of being uncomfortable, which I could personally relate to, because like I feel like a lot of things that I'm uncomfortable with, I don't ever get completely just like normal with it. I'm just like, all right, this is the feeling. I'm getting used to the feeling of being uncomfortable and I'm pushing through. But I think that's very relatable. So our last question that we have for you before we quickly wrap up is, so you work as a creative consultant for business owners, correct? And
business owners, podcasters, and comedians.
All right.
Yeah.
a wider range of people. What advice would you give them who those are trying to set goals for themselves in such like this uncertain time of coronavirus? I feel like a lot of business owners are starting to emerge as little businesses, or a lot of them are struggling to keep even open.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them in terms of how to push through this kind of weird time that we're in?
Oh, such a good question. Honestly, this is what I wish I would have done. I wish I would have found a mentor. And I'm not saying they need to work with me. I'm just saying find somebody, whether it's a consultant, a coach, a friend, somebody that they can reach out to on social media who might be able to give them a phone call. Find somebody who's doing the thing that you would really like to do or try, and talk with them about it. And also just do it, because you're not going to really know if you love it or hate it or want to keep going unless you actually go through the motions and do it. But I wish I would have kind of reached out for help a lot sooner than I did, because I would have prevented a lot of the unnecessary trial and error if I had just kind of had somebody guide me through a lot of the logistics of starting a business and, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say you don't have to do it alone. I think a lot of people get in that entrepreneurial mindset where they feel like they have to do every single part of their business or project by themselves. You absolutely don't have to do that. In the beginning, you might be doing that, but it's okay to reach out for help. And also think about what's the worst thing that's going to happen. If you're nervous about trying something, if you want to start a podcast, you want to start making YouTube videos, whatever it might be, what's the worst thing that can happen? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you might put it out there. Okay, nobody watches it. Okay, so you're in the same spot you were before you did it, right? Like, it's okay. It's okay. So you're going to survive. You'll survive the uncomfortability of starting something new and working through it. It's way more uncomfortable not to do anything, I think.
I definitely agree with that. Well, thank you so much I feel like I learned so many new tips and like advices on like a lot. This little talk that we had, and I really appreciated it. Thank you so much again. And this is anyone who's watching, go listen to Delanie's podcast, Self-Helpless. It is a great thing to listen to if you're doing whatever you're doing. But we thank you so much for being on our little interview.
You got it.
Campaign thing, but so much. We appreciate it, and we're gonna say goodbye.
Okay, you're very welcome. Bye, guys. Best of luck.